handcuffed and quickly bundled into a squad van. Romanian authorities worked closely with British counterparts and updated Interpol to confirm that Enzo Melancelli was indeed O'Brien.
After 3.5 years on the run, Shane O'Brien, one of Britain's most wanted fugitives, was finally arrested. The dramatic arrest took place in Cluj Napoca, Romania, and marked the end of an international manhunt that spanned several countries and involved multiple agencies, including the National Crime Agency, NCA, the Metropolitan Police, Europol, and Romanian authorities.
It was a Sunday evening on the 11th of October in 2015, when the RE Bar in Hillingdon in West London was the starting point for one of the most incomprehensible murder cases seen in Britain in the last 20 years.
O'Brien had managed to evade capture, despite appearing on Europol and Interpol's most wanted lists and being the subject of a £50,000 reward for information. His capture brought a sense of relief to law enforcement officials who had relentlessly pursued him, and renewed hope for justice in a high-profile case that began in 2015 with a brutal and senseless killing that shook the nation.
DJ was playing R&B music and the friends were dancing. In the moments before the attack, Joshua stood with his back to the wall, facing a group of men sitting on a bench. This is when he caught the eye of Shane O'Brien, a stranger who squared up to him and asked, "What's your problem?"
In the early hours of November 11th, 2015, Shane O'Brien carried out a horrific and unprovoked attack that left 21-year-old Josh Hansen dead. Hansen, a council roads planner, was enjoying a night out at a bar in Hillingdon, West London, with friends and his girlfriend when he was suddenly approached by O'Brien. CCTV footage captured the chilling moment. O'Brien asked Hansen, "What's your problem?" before pulling out a 37-centimeter knife and slashing him across the neck in one swift, brutal motion.
When 21-year-old Josh Hansen was brutally murdered, the assailant, Shane O'Brien, would soon become one of Europe's most wanted fugitives, sparking a global manhunt that lasted almost 4 years. The murder was not only a profound loss for Josh Hansen's family and friends, but also left a lasting scar on the local community.
The attack was so sudden and violent that Hansen collapsed on the floor and bled to death within minutes, with onlookers and loved ones powerless to help. The court later described the act as one of pitiless savagery, committed without any provocation against an entirely innocent man, highlighting the sheer brutality of the killing and the devastation it caused to those who witnessed it.
Tracy's determination was unwavering, and she made numerous public appeals for information about O'Brien's whereabouts. Her strength and dedication became a symbol of resilience for other victims' families.
Immediately following the stabbing, O'Brien exhibited a chilling level of calm and calculation. He casually exited the premises while chaos erupted inside. Within hours, he had coordinated with an associate, known only as Vanessa, to charter a private jet from Biggin Hill Airport, enabling his escape from the UK without undergoing standard passport or customs checks. His first destination was Germany, but he did not stay in one place for long. He continued to elude capture by traveling through the Netherlands, Dubai, and eventually settling in Prague. The ease and speed of his departure highlighted not only his preparedness, but also the depth of his criminal network, which provided the resources and contacts necessary to sustain his flight from justice across multiple international borders.
By the time detectives had identified their prime suspect, Shane O'Brien was long gone. The manhunt had begun. O'Brien didn't go home to Ladbroke Grove. Instead, he activated a well-established network of criminal contacts.
During his time on the run, Shane O'Brien went to great lengths to conceal his identity and remain undetected. He significantly altered his physical appearance by growing out his hair and beard, and he even covered a tattoo of his child's name with a large, intricate design of an owl clutching a skull. This transformation was part of a broader strategy that included using a variety of false identities, forged travel documents, and highly encrypted mobile phones,
and highlighted the resources at his disposal. From the Netherlands, his trail went cold. He stopped using credit cards and phones, operating entirely with cash and staying in properties owned by his contacts. His face was on wanted posters.
These sophisticated methods allowed him to communicate and move with relative ease while staying ahead of the law. His ability to remain hidden, despite being featured on the most wanted lists of international crime-fighting organizations, demonstrated both his resourcefulness and the formidable challenge he posed to authorities.
In 2017, O'Brien is arrested inside a club whilst in Prague for a violent offence, and his fingerprints are taken by Czech police. After being bailed for the offence, regrettably the time it takes for prints to match those from UK records.
Although O'Brien spent an extended period living under the radar in Prague, he was arrested in 2017 after an assault incident while using a false name. However, due to the false identity and lack of recognition, he managed to evade long-term detention and was released on bail, disappearing again into the criminal underworld. Investigators later concluded that the mounting psychological pressure of constant travel, identity changes, and fear of exposure began to erode his ability to remain cautious. This is a common pattern among long-term fugitives, many of whom eventually make mistakes or surrender voluntarily due to the immense mental toll of prolonged evasion, stress, and isolation from any sense of normal life.
And on Friday the 5th of April, he is extradited to the UK under police escort. Attending personally, DCI McHugh sees the extradition plane landing at London's Heathrow Airport. During the trial at London's Old Bailey Crown Court, O'Brien makes various excuses to the abhorrent act.
On 23 March 2019, Shane O'Brien's life on the run came to an abrupt end when Romanian police successfully detained him in the city of Cluj Napoca. His arrest came as a direct result of international cooperation facilitated by the European arrest warrant system. The operation marked a major breakthrough for British authorities, particularly the NCA and the Metropolitan Police, who had pursued the case relentlessly. NCA officials praised the success of cross-border intelligence sharing and coordination between agencies. The Josh Hansen Trust issued a public statement of gratitude, particularly highlighting the tireless efforts of Detective Chief Inspector Noel McHugh, whose dedication helped bring the long-awaited justice one step closer.
The trial focused on O'Brien's intent. His defense team argued that he had not intended to kill Josh, and claimed he lost control after feeling threatened, a moment of madness. However, this narrative was systematically dismantled by the prosecution.
Despite overwhelming evidence, Shane O'Brien pleaded not guilty to the murder of Josh Hansen, claiming that he acted in self-defense. However, the jury was unconvinced, taking just 55 minutes of deliberation to unanimously convict him of murder. Prosecutors presented extensive CCTV footage showing the cold and calculated nature of the attack, corroborated by witness statements and a detailed timeline constructed from O'Brien's mobile phone records. The court dismissed his claim that he merely intended to frighten Hansen, concluding instead that the attack was clearly deliberate, forceful, and intended to kill. The swift verdict underscored the strength of the evidence and the brutality of the crime.
Charged with the murder of Josh Hansen. During the trial, the prosecution presented overwhelming evidence against O'Brien, including witness testimonies and CCTV footage from Rebar that showed the moments leading up to the attack.
At sentencing, Judge Nigel Lickley QC did not mince words, describing the attack as grotesque, violent, and totally unnecessary. The court handed down a life sentence, with a minimum of 26 years to be served before O'Brien would even be eligible for parole. The sentencing sparked strong emotions in the courtroom, especially among Josh Hansen's grieving family. Cries of "You coward!" were heard as O'Brien was led away, reflecting the deep pain and anger that lingered nearly 4 years after the senseless killing. The sentence offered some closure, but the emotional scars remained evident.
We can never bring their loved one back, but we can bring some closure to the chapters of this nightmare that they go through and getting them the truth about what happened.
Josh Hansen's mother, Tracy, delivered a heart-wrenching tribute to her son, describing him as considerate, kind, and generous, a young man full of potential and love for life. She recounted how his life was taken in the most horrific way possible, suddenly, abruptly, viciously, and how that moment shattered their world forever. His sister Brooke echoed those sentiments, calling Josh her best friend and sharing the family's ongoing struggles with PTSD, anxiety, and overwhelming grief. In his memory, the family established the Josh Hansen Trust, an organization that now plays a key role in raising awareness about knife crime and supporting affected families.
His name and face were circulated across Europe, and he was officially labelled one of the continent's most wanted fugitives. Despite the immense resources dedicated to tracking him down, O'Brien managed to remain at large for nearly 4 years.
In his defense, O'Brien claimed that Josh Hansen had provoked him through aggressive body language and intimidating behavior. However, this narrative collapsed under the weight of video evidence, which showed O'Brien hiding a large knife in his jacket before the confrontation. This premeditated act demonstrated clear intent to harm and contradicted his claims of provocation. Detective McHugh also pointed to O'Brien's prior convictions for carrying a blade and his complete lack of remorse, both of which significantly influenced the jury's perception and helped seal the guilty verdict.
Who had spent years campaigning for his capture. Tracy Hansen, in particular, expressed her overwhelming sense of gratitude to everyone involved in the manhunt. However, the capture was only the beginning of the legal process.
The Shane O'Brien case stands as a testament to the effectiveness of modern law enforcement techniques. From high-definition CCTV footage and mobile data tracking to the use of international arrest warrants and intelligence sharing protocols, every element of the investigation reflected the growing sophistication of global policing. Despite O'Brien's access to criminal resources, encrypted phones, false identities, and private air travel, persistent detective work ultimately triumphed. The case underscored how law enforcement, when equipped with the right tools and collaboration, can close even the most elusive manhunts.
And a hatchet. Information later shows that within just several hours of the vicious murder, O'Brien had fled to a holiday park in Kent, arranging the temporary safe house whilst in the mysterious white van he initially fled the scene in. It was becoming clear that O'Brien was well connected.
Media exposure and public engagement were also pivotal in the capture of Shane O'Brien. His face became a fixture across UK news broadcasts and international media platforms, helping to generate public leads and keeping constant pressure on his criminal network. The widespread distribution of his image served as a constant reminder to the public and his associates that he was being hunted. This case reinforced the importance of publishing fugitive profiles and harnessing the public's attention and vigilance in bringing criminals to justice.
Showing his altered appearance. This was a crucial step in renewing public awareness about the case, as the updated images depicted a man who looked very different from the initial photos circulated in 2015.
O'Brien's evasion mirrored other notorious UK fugitives, including Robert Gerrard, who similarly managed to remain undetected for years before being captured. These cases highlight a recurring truth. With sustained international cooperation, even well-connected fugitives with extensive criminal resources can eventually be caught. No matter how long justice takes, advances in technology, law enforcement coordination, and persistence often lead to a resolution, even in cases that once seemed hopeless.
Josh Hansen, born in Kinsbury, northwest London, was described as a rising star in his job as a road manager for the local council. Hansen had passions for cooking, was qualified as a personal trainer, and contributed to the family mortgage.
Josh Hansen was one of many victims in a troubling rise in knife-related violence across London during that period. His senseless killing sparked public outrage and contributed to wider campaigns and changes in knife crime legislation. The case added urgency to ongoing calls for tougher penalties for knife possession and a stronger focus on preventative measures. For Hansen's family and many others affected by knife crime, the conviction represented both personal justice and a step forward in a larger societal fight against such violence.
After a colossal multi-agency manhunt spanning nearly 4 years, including the Metropolitan Police, the National Crime Agency and Interpol, O'Brien's luck finally runs out. On Saturday, March 23, 2019, he is detained by Romanian authorities.
The eventual capture and conviction of Shane O'Brien sent a clear, resounding message. No matter how far criminals run, no matter how carefully they plan their escape, they cannot outrun justice forever. The combined efforts of dedicated law enforcement officers, public vigilance, and international collaboration made the difference. For Josh Hansen's family, the verdict delivered a measure of long-awaited justice and affirmed that even the most dangerous fugitives will ultimately be held accountable for their crimes.